Welcome back to Thinking Readers, where children listen to stories and learn to think. Today is day 24 of our story advent calendar. It's the last day because tomorrow is Christmas. Yesterday, we read The Great Phoenix of London. We talked about the impact of basing a story on a real historical event. And we looked at what was so otherworldly about this stone which had fallen from the sky. We talked about what a prologue was, and we summarised the prologue and the first 3 chapters separately. We also looked at a fantastic new word, roiled. Can you remember what that means? I left you with a question. This story, as we know, is an historical novel based on a true event. What's the effect of adding now this mythical element, this phoenix? What does that add to the story? What did you come up with? Let's have both our characters here today, both our friends. Tex and Jerry, to give their views. All right, Tex, you go ahead. Well, I think that adding this sense of mystery to the novel brings more magic, more excitement. You like your excitement, don't you? I remember this about you, Tex. It makes it more interesting, more vibrant, because history was exciting, but this is even more exciting. Okay, you're up, Jerry. I think that the symbolism of the phoenix is really interesting, given the Great Fire of London, because phoenixes are about rising from the ashes, and it's as if the phoenix represents a London which is reborn. Also, I noticed that it was the Great Phoenix of London and the Great Fire of London. See the connection? Interesting. Okay, thanks, boys. What did you come up with? I bet it was something different. Talking of boys, when I was reflecting on the story yesterday, I realised that I was calling Gil she a lot of the time, and I wondered why that was. And I figured it was probably because, as a first-person narrator, I was being sucked into this perspective of Gil's, but it was almost more than that for me, and I felt that this was my story. I very much identified with Gil, and so in my mind, he was a she. I didn't even notice that I was calling him she sometimes. Anyway, please forgive me. Today, for our last day of Advent, we are going to read another narrative poem. Do you remember what a narrative poem is? Can you remember? We did one before. A narrative poem is a poem that tells a story. And this particular story is very relevant for today, very topical. It is called Twas the Night Before Christmas, and it was written by Clement Clarke Moore 200 years ago. It doesn't seem like a 200-year-old poem, I have to say. Let's read it first, and then we'll have a little discussion about it. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mamma in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled down for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters, and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave the lustre of midday to the objects below, when what to my wondering eye should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles, his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donder and Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away, dash away, dash away all. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle mount to the sky. So up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys and St. Nicholas too. And then, in a twinkling, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my hand and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled! His dimples, how merry! His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was tied up in a bow, and the beard of his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke, it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night." Let's summarise the poem. You know what to do. The first person narrator, he's the father, I think, of the family, he's getting ready for bed. Suddenly he hears an almighty clatter out on the lawn. He goes to have a look, and he sees Father Christmas, St. Nicholas, with his tiny reindeer, sweeping through the sky, calling out to the reindeer by name and landing on the roof. And he comes down the chimney, and he actually doesn't say a word to him, but he nods to him and starts filling all the stockings with presents before shooting back up the chimney again and flying off. So this is a very old poem, and really one of the first depictions, one of the first images we have of Father Christmas. So the way he was dressed, the way he looks, even his reindeer and their names all really derive from this poem. And I wonder why this poem has endured, stayed so popular for so long. Why do you think this poem is still so popular today? Why do you like it? Did you notice the rhyme of the poem? "'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a..." The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hope that St. Nicholas soon would be. The first two lines of each verse rhyme, and the second two lines of each verse rhyme. We call that AABB rhyme scheme. And it's very easy to remember. So this is the sort of poem that would be quite easy to memorise, although actually I hadn't memorised it, but this is the kind of poem that if you wanted to memorise it, you could, and if you said it a lot, you probably would commit it to memory. So I think that's one of the reasons it's endured. What about some other reasons why it may have remained so popular? Well, we said it's really the first depiction of what Santa Claus really looked, and it's a very engaging image, this jolly, jelly-like creature who's smiling and happy and full of energy, flying through the sky. And it's an image that really connected with people, and they didn't feel the need to improve upon it. So subsequently, stories that have been written and films that have been made have borrowed from this poem. They really match the descriptions in this poem. And the names of the reindeer have also come from this poem. Also, perhaps, all of us know that feeling of going to bed on Christmas Eve and lying awake wondering if we're actually going to see Father Christmas when he comes down the chimney. How many of you have waited up for Father Christmas and then fallen asleep and not seen him, or thought you'd seen him, or thought you'd heard the reindeer on the roof? Maybe you've left a mince pie or a carrot and they've been gone in the morning. We all identify with that experience of going to bed on Christmas Eve, hoping to see Santa and waking up in the morning and the stockings are filled. So it is a universal connecting image that we can all relate to. So this is our last story for Advent. I really hope that you have enjoyed this story Advent calendar. Did you have a favourite story? We read 24 different stories, 22 actual books, novels, and 2 narrative poems. Did you have a favourite? The very first one. What was the very first book we did? Seems like a long time ago. The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Seems like a long time ago. And what about all the different books in between? All the different characters, all the different adventures, the different settings, all the different things that we talked about, from the point of view, the narrator, the different descriptive language, the use of setting, the use of simile. We've talked about so many things. What I would love you to do over Christmas is actually read one of these books. Even more if you want to. Which was your favourite book? And will you read it? You can get it from the library. You can get it from a bookshop. You can see if maybe there's an old copy of maybe your parents' book or your sister's or brother's book or a friend's book lying around the house. But try to read a book this holiday so that when you go back to school, you've actually read an entire book. And you don't have to read it by yourself. Read it with somebody else and talk about it. Talk about what you like about it. Talk about what you don't understand. See if you can figure out some tricky words using some of the techniques that we used. We would like to thank you for joining us for our Story Advent Calendar. If you have joined us for the entire podcast, I want to give you a special thanks, and you go pat yourself on the back because you've done an awful lot of reading. Yes, reading. Listening to stories is as good as reading stories, so you've done a lot of reading, and I'm really proud of you. And if you've just popped in for 1 or 2 days, go back and have a little listen to some of the other days. You might get something out of it. We will be coming back in the new year with longer stories and deeper discussions, but this was just a little potpourri snapshot of all the amazing books that are out there. So from us to you, a very, very happy Christmas.